Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the iPhone 6 Take Apart and Reinstallation Guide. To begin disassembling your iPhone 6, use a pencil lobe screwdriver, as seen right here. We carry them on our website, and remove the two screws on the bottom of your iPhone 6. With the two screws removed, you can now use one of our metal opening tools, and right around this area, close to the headphone jack, you're going to try and find an opening space. There's some clips there, and you should be able to lift the screen away from the actual back housing of your phone. As you can see, when it's opened, your screen is still connected to the board. There are some screws right here covering a metal plate. You will need to remove these screws in order to release this metal plate. Use a Phillips head screwdriver to do this. Alright, go ahead and remove that metal plate, and under it you will see a few flex cables. Use a black nylon spudger that we also sell on our website. Please note you want to use a nylon spudger for this, or plastic. You never want to use one of the metal opening tools or metal spudgers on the inside of the board. It could cause damage to the actual internals of the board, and it could cause static buildup as well. Alright, as you can see, these flex cables we are disconnecting. Just go under them a little bit carefully. And there are a total of 4 of these flex cables. Alright, now that you have your screen separated from the back housing of the phone, we are only going to be using the front screen now during this portion of the repair. So on Entergadgets.com we actually sell 2 different versions of the screen. One is just the Digitizer and LCD assembly, and then one contains everything you see here except for the home button and home button bracket, which I've zoomed in on. It's up to you which you want to use. Obviously the second version is a little bit more expensive, and it'll contain all the parts you really need except for the home button and home button bracket. So if you do purchase that part, this is literally the only portion that you will need to transfer over. You will need to remove these 3 Phillips head screwdrivers, as well as the home button flex cable. Please note, the home button flex cable is actually clipped in on the left side. You'll see that little MICR code, that little square, that's where it's plugged in. And then also, you may want to use a little bit of heat so as to not rip your home button flex cable when transferring it over to the brand new screen. Alright, now using your Phillips head screwdriver again, you're going to go ahead and remove the screws on each side of the frame. These screws hold in the metal back plate on the back of your iPhone 6 LCD assembly. Alright, with those screws removed, go ahead and use your Phillips head screwdriver again and remove the metal plate covering your ear speaker front camera, and proximity sensor flex cables. Alright, this first part you see me remove is actually the ear speaker. Alright, this next item is the front camera and proximity sensor flex cable. Be careful when removing this, however if you do rip it, we obviously sell replacements on our website, but just be careful. So this part controls your front camera, your proximity sensor, which makes your screen go black when it's close to your face, so that you're not dialing with your face, and it also has the microphone on it. So it's a very important flex cable. You want to make sure not to rip it when you remove it. Alright, with those removed, go ahead and lift the metal back plate. Don't completely take it off yet, because you do have your long home button flex cable still stuck on the bottom. You may want to use a little bit of heat or a heat gun to separate this, and a nylon spudger. If you do rip this, once again, we do carry it on our website. Alright, one thing to notice is that the screens we carry are going to have these little proximity sensor and front camera holds already pre-installed on them. If you buy a lower end screen, you will need to transfer over those little plastic pieces to your brand new screen in order for your front camera to be aligned properly and your proximity sensor to work. Alright, we're going to go ahead and do the reinstallation of everything. So just pretend that the other part was a brand new screen. You're going to go ahead and take your metal shield and put it back in its respective place. So that your metal shield is not wobbling around, go ahead and put the screws on the side of the metal shield back in. There should be a total of 6 micro Phillips screws. Alright, now let's go ahead and put our front camera, proximity sensor, and microphone flex cable back in. This can be a little difficult because you have to line up the front camera and proximity sensor with the brackets. Once again, if you buy a screen that doesn't have these little plastic brackets already in there, I'm zooming in on them right now, then you will have to transfer these over. The way you transfer these over is you heat them up with a little bit of heat using a heat gun, and they will pop right off because they're only stuck on there with adhesive. But placing them back in your new frame is a little difficult. Alright, carefully when putting this back in, you need to make sure all the little brackets and holes on the flex cable match up with those on the brackets and holes on the actual back of the screen assembly. So just be careful and watch this portion very closely to avoid any mistakes. Once it's all put in, make sure it is completely flush. If it's not flush and something isn't lined up, then your screen may not close properly, or even worse, this could cause the top of your screen to crack. Alright, once that flex cable is in, go ahead and put that little bracket on top of the earpiece speaker. Make sure you didn't leave out your earpiece speaker, obviously. And then let's go ahead and screw in this bracket that covers up that flex cable. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and put our home button flex cable back in. Make sure it's in this exact orientation. You want to go ahead and place it in its spot and plug this in. Obviously, if it's not plugged in, your Touch ID sensor is not going to work. So you want to make sure that's properly plugged in and it has a hard click there. Next, make sure that little IC chip is lined up with the little white brackets. You'll see these little white dots right there. Just make sure it's lined up properly so that everything is in order. Once that's in place, go ahead and put the home button bracket on top. Make sure it's in the correct orientation and screw in the 3 Phillips screws back into their place. Alright, now you've gone ahead and completely reassembled your entire screen assembly with all the small parts. Now we're going to go ahead and plug these flex cables back onto the board. I like to do this one first. Always make sure it's first. It just kind of makes the next 3 easier. This goes in the very top. It's the long L-shaped flex cable. And then you want to go ahead and plug in the next 3 in the orientation that I do it here. Also make sure that these flex cables are properly inserted in all the way. I like to go ahead and run over them with my finger, just press down a few times, make sure that every single little chip is properly pressed up against the board. If it's not, you may get lines, you may get grid boxes when you reboot your LCD, touch may not work, you can have a multitude of issues, so always make sure that's properly pushed down and clamped in place. Alright, once you're sure that all those flex cables are properly plugged in, go ahead and put that bracket on top of them. Press down firmly, making sure that it holds these flex cables in place. And let's go ahead and put the screws back in. With all the screws in, go ahead and take the screen, and from the top, do not start at the bottom, start at the top, slide it in because there are brackets from the top, and carefully push it into place. The last step is going to go ahead and take your 2 pentalobe screws and screw them with your pentalobe screwdriver into the bottom of the phone. Once that's done, go ahead and test out all the functionality on your phone, make sure it's working well, and hopefully your repair is complete. Once again, thank you for watching our video. Please follow our YouTube channel, visit and like us on Facebook.